All right. So, if you're wondering what's the difference with this all ChatGPT flavors, like you might have heard about Bing Chat Enterprise, ChatGPT Professional, or Enterprise, or Pro, and then you also might have heard about Semantic Kernel, your Copilot, Application Copilot, GitHub Copilot, and all those kind of stuff. So in this video, I'll be try, trying my best to actually explain when to use what, and like what's the right use case for each one of those, or at least most of them. Okay, so let's first start off with ChatGPT, right? The personal edition. So unless you're living under the rock, you might have heard about ChatGPT, or you've already played with ChatGPT in the first place, right? And I think me, even up until now, I still use ChatGPT for personal use. And again, that's a very big emphasis in there for personal use. So for those who are basically just getting started, it's actually free to begin with. I think their base model Turbo 3.5, GPT Turbo 3.5 is still for free, and it's very good for things like personal DIY, recipes, or kind of like any sort of like um, I would say hobby-based capabilities. And then one downside of ChatGPT though is that it's actually logging those data to OpenAI, and they're actually using your data to actually train the model further and to enhance the capabilities of it. And obviously because of that, it's probably not very recommended to use it for enterprise use case where you probably have to put in confidential information. So yeah, I think it's very important to be cautious not to use that, especially if you're not really sure if you should be doing that in the first place, such as disclosing numbers, disclosing secrets, passwords, and all those kind of stuff, right? Because there's a bunch of different things happening at the moment. You might have heard about prompt injection, or like some prompt hacking and stuff like that. So just be very careful not to put in any private information in there. Um, then the thing with the free version of ChatGPT is that it's not super limited, but the real goodness of ChatGPT is actually only available on the Pro user, or Pro Plus user, which is around $20 per user per month, US dollars. And then um, that would allow you to use plugins, the GPT-4 model, which is more kind of like creative, more powerful model than the one that's for free. And then yeah, one thing about the ChatGPT app, itself, is that it now comes with a native mobile app that you can actually use, in your phone, which is again very powerful. If you're just on the go and like tinkering, hey, what do I want to do, or like some random ideas that you want to generate content of. Okay. But then again, right, like for me, ChatGPT is still for personal content. It's not meant for work, or at least for the enterprise setting, for that matter. So if like MJ, if we can't use ChatGPT for work or for enterprise, then what do we use then? So if you're in the Office 365 world, there's this thing called Bing Chat Enterprise. So basically, Bing Chat Enterprise is like the full Chat GPT experience, but then you're actually using Bing instead. So first off, it's actually free, at least for now, for Office 365. I think E3 license or something like that. And then I believe it's gonna be like $5 per user per month in the future. So the licensing model is very similar to how you actually apply licenses through your tenant. So again, that's very similar to just like how you do Power BI licensing or in Office 365 licensing. And one key advantage of Bing Chat Enterprise is that it's secure and basically does not use your data, your prompt, your responses. They're not actually being used to train the model. So that those set of information that you're passing to the Bing Chat Enterprise is still yours. They actually don't use it, right? Which is actually very good. Then that means that you're you're not very paranoid anymore about like basically yeah, disclosing some aspect of the information. But then again, right? Um, it's also very good for, based from my experience, it's also very good for public information searching and augmentation. So what does that mean? So because ChatGPT, the vanilla ChatGPT, is built on basically like the large language model, right? And then that large language model is only up to I think July 2021 or August 2021, right? So that means that any information after that one, it's not very relevant anymore. The thing with Bing Chat Enterprise, it allows you to actually search for public information as well. So that means that it's actually mixing the advantages of both GPT experience, or the chat experience, and the search experience of Bing, because traditionally Bing has always been a search engine, right? Um, and one downside of Bing Chat at the moment is that it kind of like lacks the business awareness of what you're doing or what your business is, right? Because at the end of the day, it's still kind of like a generic tool, right? Bing Chat Enterprise is still more or less a generic tool that's kind of like not really specific or tailor fitted for your business. Um, and the other downside at the moment is that it doesn't support the ChatGPT plugins, which is again very powerful for those who are power users of ChatGPTs at the moment. And then the mobile experience is more or less like within the Bing mobile app, so it's not like a bespoke chat app on its own. So you still need to kind of like go within the Bing mobile app and actually do the chat in there, which is just one of the many features within the Bing mobile app. So to give you an idea on how this Bing Chat Enterprise looks like, let's go to this one. So one thing that you'll notice is that if you're using the Bing Chat Enterprise, first off, you need to make sure you're logged in to Edge. At the moment, it only works for Edge. I believe so. And then once you're logged in and you go to bing.com/search and you basically go to the chat tab, you should be able to see this protected tab over there. And then that means that, hey, your personal and company data are protected. So is the disclaimer over here on the top left portion, right? That basically whatever you're putting in here is within your boundaries. Yeah? You're not actually feeding it off to OpenAI or for training purposes in the future. So one good thing about, again, what I told earlier about Bing Chat Enterprise, that for example, I want to know the latest trends in technology. So if you ask this to the vanilla ChatGPT, it's just gonna spit out whatever is the trend all the way back to August 2021 or July 2021. But then because of Bing Chat Enterprise, it mixes the search capability. So it actually searched the web for you know for answers, and then it actually uses the ChatGPT capability or the LLM capability to actually spit out this kind of like very human readable text, right? So there you go, right? If you can see here, according to Gartner 2023, generative AI is kind of like one of the trends at the moment, which is again very powerful to kind of like augment those information from the public web. So yeah, I think I would still be I would use Bing Chat Enterprise most of the time for anything that requires public information, like if I want to research and stuff like that. Um, but then again, if I'm not, in the Office 365 world, what's the alternative for this thing? So the alternative is obviously, ChatGPT Enterprise, so which is now available, I think, around $20 per user per month, which is very similar to if you go pro with ChatGPT. And the thing is, with this one, with the GPT Enterprise, you're now actually same capabilities within the Bing Chat Enterprise, wherein like it's basically kind of like closed, or you're not actually um, disclosing those information anymore. And then it already comes with plugins and extensions, right? Which is, again, there are much more plugins and extensions within the ChatGPT Enterprise, and not just Enterprise, but the ChatGPT Pro Plus experience versus the Bing Chat Enterprise. So, for example, you can actually kind of like um, use ChatGPT to analyze data like a CSV file, or you can generate graphs, those kind of like different plugin extension model. And actually, you can also search the web using the Bing plugin within the ChatGPT experience. So the one kind of like advantage of this ChatGPT Enterprise is that the experience is very similar to the personal ChatGPT um, experience. So it's kind of like to like, to just like, hey, using the personal ChatGPT. Um, and again, if you're not more on on non Microsoft flavor, like if you're using G Suite in the organization, so it's most likely that this is an option for you. But then again, right, you have to pay the premium of like $20 per person per month, compared to Bing Chat Enterprise, which is like $5 later on, I think, on top of the 365 license. So then again, right, like and the other thing in consideration as well later on is the not just the cost itself, but the administration overhead of like in the full onboarding process, like requesting like that kind of like capability just needs to be um, ingrained later on. Because like, for example, compared to the Bing Chat Enterprise, if it's already within the Office 365 licensing model, there might be a chance that the admins already have some scripts like that to automate all of this. So again, might, especially for large organizations, there might be already some more advanced capabilities that you just have to turn on and off for licensing purposes. And now let's move on to this thing called Copilots, right? You might have heard about GitHub Copilot, um, especially with Microsoft these days. Like, there's basically a Copilot app for each and every application out there, right? And the thing is, what makes it different from Bing Chat and ChatGPT, right? So I think, like, because ChatGPT and Bing, they're Bing Chat, they're more like a general purpose, chat research, information gathering, information generation application, right? But then, if you now go to specific applications such as GitHub, right? Like, meaning if you want to generate code, right? So you want to go straight to your IDE, like VS Code or Visual Studio, and then you generate content in there. So they're now much more specific to those specific applications, right? And the thing with this one is that, obviously it's very similar to just use ChatGPT or Bing Chat Enterprise and like, hey, generate this code for me, or generate this information for me, and then copy pasting it to that IDE or to the workspace. But the thing is, productivity wise, then that means you just have to do a lot of context switching, right? And the other thing as well is that this copilots, they're kind of like again, specialized, right, for that specific areas, for that specific arena. So that's why there's a really compelling use case for that compared to just using ChatGPT or Bing Chat Enterprise. Like, for example, in the future, for example, like Power BI, right, Microsoft Fabric and stuff like that. In the future, you'll be able to actually generate reports, graphs, by just typing prompts, which is again very powerful, right? Compared to like generating all of those different like controls and stuff like that, which is again in my opinion and in my experience using these tools for I think more than a year now already, is that they're really emphasized as co-pilots, meaning it shouldn't replace your work, it shouldn't replace you, because the thing is, if you just use it vaguely or like lazily, something like that, it's not really gonna create a good outcome. So, and sometimes one of the experience that I have as well is that because sometimes you're trying to perfect the prompt or like the input, then the time it takes to actually conceptualize to make sure that the perfect input generates a perfect output, it's actually astronomically higher than just doing it by yourself. So you have to weigh in those pros and cons as well of this Copilot capabilities. Like for example, if you're like generating code here and there, so you probably need to be much more cautious that you know that this thing actually works. So if you think of it this way, it's actually very similar to just copy pasting code from Stack Overflow, right? Like if you just literally copy pasted code and you didn't put the effort to actually understand it, then it's not really gonna work, right? Or maybe it's gonna work, but it's not meant to work based on what you want it to be. So again, just be very cautious that this Copilots is literally Copilot, and it's very alpha beta phase at the moment, and there's experiencing a lot of this token limitation problem at the moment, wherein like hallucinations, and like sometimes it's not very aware of the whole thing. So again, that's something you just have to be very cautious about. But then again, question is, would I use this? The answer is yes, right? Again, it's still gonna be very helpful to do the mundane tasks, like instead of like copy pasting or like generating this content here and there. It's still gonna be very useful. But then again, think it's gonna be like a mix of really making sure that you understand what's being generated versus just relying fully on it. Then lastly, in terms of like use case of this one, then obviously it's on a premium tier of any of these apps, right? Like obviously you wouldn't assign a GitHub Copilot license to not a developer. Obviously we'll just be assigning that to a developer. So yeah, like it's kind of like very niche now, or like very clear which licensing model you'll be applying that for, right? And most likely it's like again a premium on top of the existing application already. Now, what if there's no Copilot to what I'm using, right? Like, or what my business does, or like what we're doing. So how can we still leverage this technology? So that's where you can kind of like basically create your own Copilot, pretty much, right? So for us, like for example, I work for a company called Playtime Solutions. So we're actually building our own Copilot as well. Where this is where we actually use to search sensitive information, and it's very highly customizable for our use case. So like some of the use cases that we are using it for is basically because we're a bunch of consultants, we want to analyze project reports, time sheeting and stuff like that. So it's more like catered around those capabilities. And obviously this type of things, it's not something that goes out of the box with with ChatGPT or other Copilots. So you literally have to build it yourself, because again, that's your business, right? So and then we're also automating a bunch of the mundane tasks around time sheeting in Zero, and all those type of things. um, and yeah, like the one key advantage of this is that it's also pluggable, or at least that's the idea, that you can actually build this capability, or you can design this capability now, wherein you have a lot of options to choose from, nowadays compared to last year. So you can actually build this Copilot capability on-prem now, like literally not using the cloud. So, but then again, right, that's where a lot of these conversations goes beyond like how effective it is, like do you want to maintain this and stuff like that. And obviously, that's a bunch of different technologies come into play. Like if you're in the Microsoft world, you might be already like gonna explore something like Azure OpenAI. So instead of actually maintaining the model yourself, or creating your own LLM for that reason, or you might just be using Azure OpenAI to just consume it just like APIs. Then you might see this thing called semantic kernel, which is a way to kind of like build your Copilot capability. So I'll probably cover that in the future videos. And then you might see cognitive search, which allows you to do indexing. So then you're gonna go into the realm of vector databases, vector indexing, embeddings, and those kind of stuff. So that's when you kind of go deep into your own custom use cases for your Copilot. So for us, for example, we want to integrate with Jira, like get our tickets, integrate with GitHub as well to just kind of like report on pull requests and stuff like that, and SharePoint documents, which is something we still classify as where we actually put our highly sensitive information, right? Then Microsoft Graph, for example, we want to look at how many days are spent on meetings versus like working, and then we can kind of like compute like, hey, how much how much we could have saved if we didn't actually do this meeting. So a bunch of those different kind of like advanced analysis, you can actually generate that if you actually create that own Copilot capability. So yeah, those are kind of like the advantage of building your own Copilot. But then again, right, the flip side, or the disadvantage of this means you just have to build it yourself, or if not yourself, you engage to partners like us to actually build it for you, right? Like it's either that, or then obviously it's not a per user per month model anymore. It's actually you actually have to pay the cost of building it, whether you're building it in-house or you're building it with partners. So you still have to consider that cost, and again, that means that cost justifies the value that needs to be realized when you're doing this Copilot. But yeah, I think it's a really good play if, again, those specific niche use cases that only is applicable to you, right, at the moment. So yeah, I think that's kind of like the advantage of creating your own Copilot. All right, so just to recap. All right, let's zoom out. Okay, so just to recap, ChatGPT is something I would still use for personal use cases. Still gonna use that pretty much. And then we use Bing Chat Enterprise because because we're already in the Office 365 family, and then you would probably use the ChatGPT Enterprise if you're in the non-Microsoft flavor. And then we use these Copilots like on a per app basis, and then we're building our Copilot capability within your own organization. Actually, let me just quickly show you the alpha version of what we're building, right? So for example, here what we did is that I uploaded this pack around clinical registries. Then that just means that when I ask something about clinical registries, it actually spits out information that's relevant to this document. But the thing is, it's not copy pasted. It's not like just fuzzy search, copy this, then paste it here. So it's actually using LLM or the language model to actually generate this content, but still very relevant to the source of information. And like when you ask what is benchmarking, and then you basically spit out what benchmarking is for that use case. So yeah, and then we put in some confidential chats in here as well. Then we do have group chats capabilities and stuff like that, which I'll probably cover in the future. But yeah, then again, right, this is again very specific that you need to have proper use case to begin with. And yeah, it's all logged in with Active Directory, so it's kind of like you need to make sure you have a Playtime Solutions account to get in. So again, very specific, very narrowed use cases for both, that needs to make sense for you to buy in the first place. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, if you do have any questions, please let me know. And just like, comment, subscribe, as you might say. Yeah, thanks for watching.